You're listening to a Brawl Network production. This is a podcast for the best fans in the NFL.
Are you in the Mafia?
Am I in the what?
It's time for a Bills Brawl podcast.
Second down and 7. Kelly with the time. Touchdown! Bill Brooks.
Allen. Deep shot. Touchdown! On the line to Stephon Diggs.
And Thurman breaking tackles at the 22. Inside the 10. Touchdown Buffalo.
Mike Lindsley with you, talking some Buffalo Bills football. It is so great to be a part of this fantastic group. I can't say enough about the Brawl Network for bringing me on. So excited. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Network Brawl. We're covering the sports like no other, and super excited to jump on and be a part of this thing, man. It's my first episode with the Brawl Network, and it's going to be amazing. Thanks to Mike and Michael and the entire gang. Everybody's named Mike here, right? So, super excited to be the Bills voice. I've been a diehard Bills fan, obviously, since the age of 5, and really, just to give people kind of a quick synopsis of some things, we all start as a fan. It doesn't matter how big you get. You could be Colin Cowherd and Rich Eisen and Dan Patrick, and we know that Eisen kind of throws in the Michigan thing a lot, and I think he does a really nice job of balancing it. But, as you become a professional, as you become a little bit more objective instead of subjective, you kind of get away from the fandom, and you're doing your thing and breaking down the games, and it's why I don't like to go to a bar to watch a game. I don't like to go to a party of 25, 30. I want to be in my living room by myself because I have to talk about the game and write about the game and do videos about the game. And, I've been a diehard, since the 90s. The Kelly, Thomas Reed, Bruce Smith, Darryl Talley, Don Beebe, Pete Metzelaars, Keith McKellars, Kenneth Daves. I can go on and on and on. Everybody knows about the Kelly, Thomas Reed, Bruce Smith era, Marv Levy, but it goes beyond that. It goes to Shane Conlon and Mark Kelso and Steve Tasker, who should be in the Hall of Fame. It goes to the guys like, John Fina, who I just had, on the ML Sports Platter podcast, which, by the way, you can get through the Brawl Network on all the major platforms like Google, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and Deezer. But I'm just so excited to talk Buffalo Bills football with the Brawl Network, and thank you to everyone for welcoming me here. It's been absolutely humbling. It's been emotional to be a part of this. And, we all go through the media, laundry together, right? We're washed, we're dried, we're cooked, we're eaten, we're spit out. And I'm no different. And I started as a fan. I grew up watching the Bills in the 90s. That 1993 playoff comeback of the Oilers. I was in my living room as a 14-year-old telling my dad to stop collecting the Christmas lights. Stop taking them down. The Bills are coming back. And he's like, oh, yeah, right. And it was Beebe and Reed and Frank Reich. And that's where I stand. And 4 straight Super Bowl losses, I'm not bothered by it. It was a great time in my childhood. Just super, super, super excited about the Bills right now moving forward with Allen and Diggs and McDermott and Bean and all the names that we will talk about. And I promise to give you, the Brawl Network listener, really top-notch guests, great Bills players from the past, current Bills players today. And, I got to tell you, it's just such an unbelievable opportunity to be a part of a group that's growing and a group that really cares and is passionate. And I won't let you down. That's all I'm going to tell you. And with that, I'm going to bring on my first guest of this platform, a guy who's been covering the Buffalo Bills for decades, a guy who I respect like no other. It is Howard Simon, the morning show co-host on WGR 550 in Buffalo. Now, Howard, I've been listening to so long, it goes all the way back to the 2000, 2001, 2002 years when he was part of WNSA, part of the Empire Sports Network. That's how far back I go, as a student at St. Bonaventure. And I went to Empire and NSA as an intern over 2 decades ago, and I listened to Howard on the way up. I listened to the Sabres post-game and some Howard stuff on the replay, around midnight 1, because let's face it, I was always in a snowstorm. And I've had Howard on a lot over the years, and he's just been such a tremendous voice in Buffalo, New York. He's been kind of a friend to me, and somebody who I respect a great deal, even though, Howard, the New York Mets still haven't won a World Series since 1986. Howard, welcome in, man. Really great to have you, and thanks for jumping aboard here, the Brawl Network, man. It's great to have you as a first guest.
Okay, hold off with that great stuff. Is that I feel like that's like when you do the deal long enough.
That's what it is. You're old. Yeah. You're old now, so I can call you
pretty much what you just said. The old Howard Simon is joining us. I think if you're in like 25 plus years, they throw in great.
Yeah, you're now a legend or a great.
Yeah. You could stink, but it doesn't matter if you're still alive doing it. Like, well, let's call him great. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Very nice.
So we're talking exclusively Buffalo Bills, no Super Bowl stuff, recap and stuff, nothing. We're getting into the future of the Bills and what was 2020. At what moment in 2020 did you believe this could be a team that could win it all? Because let's face it, losing in the AFC title game, you lose that game, there's only one game after that, right? So at what moment did you feel like this was a championship contender?
I know exactly the game. San Francisco game. And I'd love your answer, too, because I'm really curious. It's and I'm just the way they came out of the bye, they started winning. And, you don't look – and San Francisco's not even a playoff team, right? It turns out, they had a whole bunch of injuries. I know Kittle doesn't play, Garoppolo doesn't play, yeah. But that's a good defense they were facing that night.
Yeah.
They destroyed them. Like, in this run they were on coming out of the bye, in this – they went through about a month-long funk offensively. The Jets game, they lost to Kansas City. They lost to Tennessee. They didn't score a touchdown against the Jets. They didn't play that well against the Patriots, but they beat them, and they hung on at the end. They lose the Hail Mary. They come out, and they start playing a little bit better, right? And that, to me, the closing stretch in December, they looked so good down the stretch. They were, prior to that, people were like, well, they're winning, but they're winning close games. They're not closing people out. What's happening in the second half? And then they started blowing people out. Pittsburgh wasn't a blowout, but they were much better in the second half. The San Francisco game for me, because it was almost a perfect performance from start to finish, I'm not sure I could have drawn up a better night for Josh Allen. He was in such control, Mike. He played under such poise. They moved the ball almost at liberty. They would have scored earlier. Zach Moss fumbles. In his own one, and they get a touchdown. It was incredible how good the offense looked against what was still a good defense, and a defense run by a coordinator who, everybody's talking about is one of the hot coaches in the league. So for me, the fact that even though they were not a winning team, they go out there and they completely blew them out, to me, that was like, ooh, okay, that was the eye-opening game. By that point, right, you weren't worried about the division. They were going to hold off Miami, and it was really how they're playing down the stretch. And then the Denver game, the New England game. But I don't know. There's just something about the San Francisco game. I came in the next morning going, "Wow, that was really impressive."
Yeah, mine was the Rams game. Only because
that early. Wow.
Yeah, because they were up big and blew the lead, and I'm going. To see it time and time again. There's so many different hot take bullshit narratives with people across the country, who they don't cover the Bills. They don't see Allen. And it works the same way for people in the Buffalo market, perhaps, who work. But, they talk about the NFL. They talk about the Bills, obviously, 100%, which is what you should do. But, do you, can you give the Monday morning take on Mitch Trubisky in Chicago? Probably not. The way a guy in Chicago can. You can only talk about, up to the ceiling of your team, the way it is. And I feel like the Ram game, there's so many different ways to dissect Allen and the Bills. And, can they do it over and over again? Can he beat this team? Can they win in prime time? Can they win the division? the amount of things that the Bills had to kind of overcome in terms of the doubters, the Rams, they came back, best defensive player on one side, a former Bill and Robert Woods on the other. A lot going on in that game. I understand no fans. But you're kind of looking at it going, man, is this a slip up? Like, is this it? Is this the one? Yeah. And you're kind of and then all of a sudden, like, as long as Allen keeps getting the ball back and got the ball back one, the Cardinal game, had the ball back. I'll tell you, Howard, I was on a text thread with like 7 or 8 of my closest buddies, all Bills diehards. I mean, diehards. And, they're going on, and we're texting during the Cardinal game, and I'm trying to get away from tweeting in the game, inside games, and texting people inside games because I just can't deal with it anymore. And I told them, I said, listen, if Allen gets the ball back, they're going to win the game. And I sent the text and I said, holy shit. And I turned to my wife and I said, did I just send that? And I think it was, the Ram game that gave me clarification at the end that they could do it. And when they came back after blowing the lead, it was just another hurdle, and I feel like the confidence built from there. That's all.
But you know what? Like, because you asked me, the question was, when did I think they were a legit Super Bowl contender, right? So that's why for me, I wasn't there earlier in the season. For me, the stretch of, I knew they were going to make the playoffs. I was very confident they'd make the playoffs this year going into the season.
Me too.
I was very confident they'd win the division because I knew New England would be down. We weren't worried about the Jets. And I didn't think Miami would be good enough to contend for the division yet. But I think the stretch with, let's see, it was Miami, Rams, Vegas. That 3-game stretch, to me, I didn't come out of that thinking, hey, they can contend with the best teams in the league. I came out of that realizing, okay, they have a real passing offense. Their identity of the 2020 Bills' identity is throwing the football. They bring in Diggs. Okay, great. Well, they were better with Brown. They were better with Beasley. Josh made strides in year 2. That 3-game stretch was holy wow. Like these guys are really good offensively. Like this is the kind of an offense Bills fans have been praying for 20 years. Look, Miami, say what you want in week 2, but again, Miami, their defense was good. Now, I know they lost one of their corners early in that game, and they picked on the young corner, the draft pick, but that's a good defense, Blue. They destroyed them. The game ends up being close late, and then the Bills pull away, Mike, you know that, but they really moved the ball against them. You brought up the Rams game, which is a good defense, and look what they did. And then they go out to Vegas. Now, that's not a great defense, but they're just putting up points. Like they're waking up out of bed in the morning, going to work, and putting up 30+ points, which Bills teams haven't done around here in 30 years. So that stretch for me wasn't. I think they can contend in the AFC, and I certainly didn't. I wasn't sure how to feel after the Tennessee and Kansas City games, but that stretch for me was about, okay, Josh has made a big jump in year 3. Dable really does know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Diggs is a great acquisition, and the heck with run the ball, defense, special teams. This team is throwing the ball. They're throwing the ball to build a lead, and then they're throwing the ball with the lead. They're not getting a lead and going, all right, we're going to run the clock out now. Nope, they get the lead, and they keep throwing the ball to extend the lead. And again, that's not something Bills teams have done in a long time. That's what that stretch was for me.
Yeah, welcome to 2020 Buffalo Bills. That Mike Malarkey, right. Greg Williams, Dick Duran. No. It's all over with. Howard Simon, WGR 550 Buffalo, talking Buffalo Bills here with me, Mike Lindsley. When you look at the future now, the immediate Bills Mafia, the overwhelming fan base thought is, well, they did this is next. Well, it doesn't work that way in sports. Like, you can't guarantee anything, Howard. You know that. You hit the reset button and off we go. Is this franchise now, Bean, McDermott, Allen, Diggs, how they're going to operate with a cap, etc., whatever the window is, 2 to 4, 3 to 5, 4 to 6, are they going to win a Super Bowl? I'm not saying next year necessarily, but is this, whatever time this is, are they going to win one? When it's all said and done, everybody here, right? Like the Seattle Legion of Boom, that happened with Russell Wilson, then they paid Wilson, it's still a part of the era of Seahawks football. They have one championship, right? So, like, 20 years from now, we're going to look back. Are they going to win one? That's all I'm asking.
They should have had two.
I agree. But that's them, and this is Buffalo. So Buffalo gets one, everything shuts down. You know that.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'd like to be alive to see that. I don't know. It's so hard to predict. Look, you're right. There is no guarantee. You know, I was thinking back. This season reminded me a lot. I didn't get here till 89. Okay, so I wasn't here in 88, but I was here for the Super Bowl years. And for me, this season reminded me of that, where maybe more so whoever was here in 88, you know, where all of a sudden they go from, they're building, they weren't very good, bring in Marv Levy, hey, Jim Kelly signing, great. And you got Bruce Smith, you got Andre Reed, you draft Thurman Thomas, trade Cornelius Bennett. I mean, you can see they're putting together a good team. 88 division title, AFC Championship game. Wow. What happened in 89? Oh, okay. Wild card loss. Ronnie Herman dropped the ball. Ugh. But then from that, so like to your point of, there is no guaranteed next step, but eventually it comes in the early 90s. Yeah. If I had to make a prediction, I would tell you that yes, and it's based not as much on hope as it is on actual belief, because I think they have elevated. If you want to hit all the boxes, you know, do they have ownership committed to providing resources? Yes. Do they have a strong general manager and a very good front office around him? Pro personnel, college personnel? Yes. Do they have a very good head coach? Yes. Do they have a good staff? And hey, at least for next season, they keep their coordinators. Did they find their quarterback, right? If you're talking about winning a Super Bowl, what do you have to have? You've got to have the quarterback. Sure looks like they have. The guy played at an MVP level this year. Do they have talent on the roster? Yes, they do. The next question, I think, and by the way, of course, we can't predict injuries, but the next question is, okay, cap, right? What's the cap situation? What's the window like? Can you keep these guys? Are you going to be in cap trouble? Now, they're not in great cap shape now, Mike, as you know, but you can always do things, okay? You can restructure contracts. I'm sure they're going to cut some guys this year and this offseason, I should say, create some cap space and do what they have to do. I'm sure they'll lose some players off the roster. Maybe they can't re-sign Matt Milano. I don't know. But I think the depth of this is the deepest roster a Bill team has had in 20, 30 years. It's the best coach-GM combo they've had since Polian and Levy. And you would look at it and go, okay, if they can't re-sign Milano, well, they have to cut maybe a John Brown, or they can't re-sign Feliciano or Darrell Williams. Wouldn't you have faith in the front office and the organization, whether it's draft, whether it's trade, whether it's free agency, more often than not, they've hit in the last 4 years. Yeah. So I know they're good enough to replenish the roster wherever holes might be created by the salary cap. It's a long answer, but yeah, it's not hoping they win in this window. You can absolutely say, look, I think they're better than, either as good or better than everybody in the AFC except one team. And I think Kansas City is better than anybody in the NFC. So, yeah, it's entirely feasible. Somewhere in this next 5-year stretch, they win a Super Bowl.
What does Josh Allen's contract look like? Is it Deshaun Watson? Is it a Mahomes long-term thing with opt-outs?
Yeah.
What's next for him? And obviously that's where the rest of the roster is impacted the most.
Yeah. You know, if you go by recent contracts, I mean, Mahomes is the outlier. He is in his own neighborhood on the field and with his contract. I that guy got a 10-year contract. I know there are opt-outs, but I tried to look at the most recent deals in the last 3 years. So you mentioned Deshaun Watson. Some are good, some are bad. You mentioned you could look at Carson Wentz. You could look at Russell Wilson. You could look at Jared Goff. I think those are the 4 guys I looked at, plus Mahomes. Mahomes gets 10 years. The other 4 guys all got 4-year extensions on top of their rookie contracts. I think that's what you'd be looking at. You know, I don't think you're going to get a really big long-term deal, but if you're going by recent deals, we're talking a 4-year extension with an average somewhere. My guess, if I had to hazard a guess, Deshaun Watson's AAV is 39, so I'm going to guess somewhere 35 to 39, 40 tops in that area.
Okay, final question for you, and I'll just give you kind of the stage on the salary cap stuff, you know, and go wherever you want. Special teams, defense, and offense, whatever comes top of mind. You know, who do you cut where to save here to get him there. In other words, quickly I go cut Brown, cut Addison, cut Jefferson, restructure Morse to get Williams a contract, and Diggs and Beasley to restructure. Allen needs his deal. Maybe for draft guys, you cut an extra guy here. You got to get a corner opposite Trey White, no matter if you keep running zone out there, if you're Leslie Frazier against KC. Where do you go with the cap? Who do you cut? Where? What comes to mind to make sure this roster is ready to go?
I think you hit a lot of it. I think the obvious cut candidate, and it has nothing to do about his ability, is John Brown. I'd be.
It's a lot of money, Howard. It's a lot of money there.
I'd be surprised if he's back. And look, he was a tremendous pickup last year with Cole Beasley, and then you get Diggs. And you draft Gabriel Davis. And we'll see what they think of Isaiah Hodgins. We have no idea. The kid wasn't able to play at all this season. Then if they do cut him, I would expect they would try and find some other speed receiver. I don't think the answer is just re-sign Isaiah McKenzie, and he's a top 3 guy. I think they would need to address the loss of speed. But that's $8 million in cap space at a position, wide receiver group, where you are deep right now. I think he's a prime candidate for cap cut. I think you hit the other guys. I think, honestly, in that triumvirate of Addison, Butler, Jefferson, I would think 1, if not 2 guys are coming out of there. You do that, and Brown, and you're looking at a ballpark of 15, I think at least 15, maybe $20 million in cap space by cutting 3 guys. So I think those are prime candidates. You mentioned restructure Morse. Sure, go to the guys that have your highest cap numbers, your highest base salaries, and those are the candidates for restructure. And Morse is certainly one of the higher cap numbers on the team. I wouldn't mind restructuring him so I could keep him rather than straight have to cut Mitch Morse. I'd like to see them re-sign Feliciano and Darrell Williams. I wouldn't think it would be a massive amount of money. I don't see a way, Mike, where they do that, in my book, where they could do that and keep Milano. I'm also adding a tight end. I'd like to see them, if they can get, whether it's Jonnu Smith or Gerald Everett, or get one of the tight ends on the market this year. Bring in a tight end. You've got to do better than Dawson Knox. I like him, but they need someone who can make a bigger impact in the passing game at the tight end position. I don't think that's coming out of the draft. So I think I need to go into free agency and get that guy or trade for that guy, and that's eating up cap space too. So my guess is this all means I don't see how you keep Milano, plus keep the guys on the offensive line. We always hear from McDermott and Bean about what? Build up front. Build the lines. You win battles up front. You win football games. So I'm going to guess they lean more. They could probably maybe even sneak in Williams and Feliciano for close to what the cap number would be for Milano all by himself. So that's what I think is going to happen. I think Milano is going to be just too expensive for them to be able to keep around.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really interesting, too, because, once you get that close and you lose to the team that, could be building here a possible dynasty in the Chiefs, it's funny where, one or two things. Well, you got to go get this guy. You got to go get you got to go get Travis Kelce now. Well, Travis Kelce ain't hanging from a branch on a tree.
Yeah, no. Hey, if you can get him, go get him. By the way, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. But it's like when the '90s Bulls were doing their thing, and it's like, well, you got to go get the triangle offense. Oh, and by the way, go get the next Pippen and go get. Well, they don't. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. But if they can improve in the tight end area, it can help them. But they just made the AFC Championship without Travis Kelce. So, the tight end could be important for the offense, but how much? And I think that the Bills and McDermott and Bean will kind of try to stay reserved in terms of how they go get this thing. But you got to admit it, man. This was fun this year, huh?
Oh, it was a blast. I mean, it's really the most fun we've had around here since, it's probably a good 15 years from either a Bills or Sabres perspective. Right. You got to go back to the back-to-back conference finals teams. It was great. It was great, for people of my age, Mike, to remember what it was like in the early 90s, to feel that feeling again. But I've got a 24-year-old son. It was great for me to experience the season with him because he's never known this.
Sure.
He had never seen let's see, was he technically? No, he wasn't actually alive.
No, because I was going to say, I'm 41. I'm a teenager, and I interned at Empire Sports at Bonaventure in 2000, 2001. Back when you were a young man, Howard, okay? So.
Yeah, it was a long time. I had hair, yeah. But that's cool, right? I mean,
yeah,
for
man.
people in the 20-year-old, they've never experienced Bill's success, and they see that, they experience it, and they see what the community's like, and the place going nuts, and even in a pandemic, people flying their flags and wearing their Bills gear, and it was just so awesome to feel that again for everybody.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you're entrenched in it. Even without the fans, you can feel something, and Kim Pagula talked about it. I had Ginger Jeffrey on not too long ago, by the way. She passes a hello on to you.
Very good.
And it was just a blast. Howard Simon of WGR 550. Make sure you listen to him and Jeremy in the mornings. Howard, really appreciate it, bud.
My pleasure, Mike. Anytime. You stay safe.
The Bills Brawl. I'm Mike Lindsley. So happy to be a part of the network. And, of course, you can get us on Twitter at Network Brawl, all over Instagram, all over Facebook, all the social media platforms. Make sure you download and subscribe and leave those 5-star reviews and feedback for all of our podcasts, and follow and certainly like all the pages across social media as well. Big time thanks to Howard Simon, the terrific AM co-host on WGR 550. Great to have the first one in the books. Plenty more to come for you, Bills Mafia. Going to try to get the best guests out there, talk a bunch about the NFL draft. We'll do a lot in terms of the training camp and what it could look like upcoming this summer, and a heck of a lot more. Free agency, contract restructuring, the cap, and how that goes. It's a day-to-day thing. There is no off-season for the Buffalo Bills and the National Football League. Hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports, and as I always tell you, enjoy the games.